Welcome to DMI's Next Sale, the podcast that covers everything financial professionals like you need to know in the annuity and life insurance space. Join us as we talk with experts about products, sales techniques, operations, and current events that directly affect your next sale. Welcome, everyone, to DMI's Next Sale podcast. Today, we're going to be talking with Erick Lindewall, who's Vice President Annuities at DMI. Erick, can you tell me a little bit about your background?
Hi, Maureen. Yeah, sure. So my name is Erick Lindewall. I'm the Vice President of Annuity Sales here at DMI. And my role is really to work with agents and advisors to deliver the best solutions they possibly can to their clients. A little bit about myself. I've been in the industry, I shudder to say, over 30 years, and I've spent nearly 25 years as a wholesaler in the annuity space. So I've represented all types of annuity products to all channels nationwide for the better part of 25 years. So what I really love to do is dig in deep with advisors and agents, evaluate cases, and help them deliver best-in-class solutions to their clients. And it's what I'm passionate about, and it's what all of us here at DMI live and breathe every day.
I know you're really passionate about it. It's one of the reasons I love talking to you is your knowledge, perspective, and your history that you can bring to the table. It's really such a great added value. Today, we're going to be talking about clients that have qualified assets that have to take RMDs and they still want to leave a legacy and that they don't want to see that legacy eaten away. And this is a new sales concept that DMI is working with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's something we've had a ton of success with, and we want to make sure everybody knows about this opportunity to really solve some problems that many folks have.
So talk to me about qualified assets. Does this sales concept that we're working with only for qualified assets? Is it for more than that? What is the big deal with the qualified?
Yeah, so certainly this is a concept that can work for both non-qualified and qualified assets, but really, it really fits nicely with folks with qualified assets, and specifically those folks that are going to be taking just RMDs in retirement. So, when you think about the average advisor's client base and their average book of business, what we found is that, most advisors are looking at 65 to 70% of their overall assets that they manage being qualified money. And for a lot of those folks, as they transition into retirement, they're going to be looking to maximize the amount of income that they can take out of their qualified assets to kind of connect the retirement income dots. But for many of those folks, they get to retirement, and whether it's Social Security, pensions, non-qualified assets, rental income, their income's perfectly fine. So for those folks, they're probably just going to take RMDs when required to satisfy Uncle Sam. And for a lot of those folks, they don't really have a strategy. In other words, they just take their RMDs because they have to, but there's really no strategy behind it. And that's where this idea comes in.
Right. Because, we really want to educate our clients and make sure they have these retirement strategies going forward.
Yeah. So the crux of the story is this. So, imagine a client or a married couple, 65, 66 years old, and they've done really well in life, and they've accumulated a bunch of qualified money and non-qualified money. They probably have a pension or a business that they've sold or what have you. And as they look forward to retirement, they recognize that from an income standpoint, they're going to be just fine. So they're not necessarily concerned about leveraging their qualified assets for maximum retirement income. The income piece is kind of squared away. In fact, if you ask them with respect to RMDs, what their plan was, they probably say something like this: I don't want them, I don't need them, and quite frankly, I wish I didn't have to take RMDs. In fact, I'd love just to pass all this qualified money on to the kids and try to preserve it as best I can. And so for those folks, it's a bit of a challenge, right? Because Uncle Sam's making you take withdrawals from these accounts, and we really have no assurances with respect to how much we're going to leave to the kids. And so that's where this FER story really comes in. FER stands for Family Endowment Rider, and it's an enhanced death benefit rider that's an optional rider available on the Athene BCA suite of fixed indexed annuities. And it works something like this. The client gets a guaranteed 5% compounded roll-up on their death benefit each and every year up through age 85. Now, that in and of itself isn't revolutionary. What's really unique, Maureen, is that when the clients get to RMD age and they start to take RMD withdrawals, the death benefit is reduced not on a proportionate basis for each withdrawal, but rather on a dollar for dollar basis. Now, we're kind of getting into jargon here.
Exactly.
But let me give you an example. So, if I was 65 and my wife Jennifer was 62, and we took $1 million of our qualified money and we put it in this solution with the FER rider.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 73, we started to take RMDs from that IRA. If I assume that the annuity never earned a penny of interest ever, and I was taking RMDs each and every year, all the way out to say, age 93, I would have taken out of that $1 million, nearly $800,000 worth of cumulative RMDs.
It's almost the whole thing. I mean,
it's almost the whole thing, right?
Thinking about it, yeah.
Now, again, I put in $1 million, I took out 800,000, and the account never earned a penny of interest. You with me?
Yeah. So, and the chances of that aren't likely, but let's go with zero.
Yeah, let's say it. In fact, you could even say the markets went down every year for, 28 years, right? So what might you imagine would be left for the kids? I put in $1 million, I took out $800,000, it never earned a dime. What might be left for the kids?
Not a lot. Plus, I'd want to give you a Viking funeral. So, I mean, that's the balance of it, right?
In fact, the way the FER solution works, and we can show this in a case study, on a contractually guaranteed basis in that situation, the death benefit to the kids would actually be more than my original $1 million.
Get out of here.
In fact, it's about 1.1 million or so. So
even after you took out all those RMDs?
Yeah, it's really amazing, and it's a function of two things: that 5% compounded guaranteed growth on the death benefit each year up to age 85. And then importantly, as I start to take my withdrawals out, my required minimum distributions, my death benefit was not reduced proportionally. It was reduced on a dollar for dollar basis. The net effect is that 8-year period prior to taking RMDs where I was able to accumulate that death benefit roll up.
Gotcha.
It really delivers a ton of value to the clients. And now there's a lot of cynics out there listening, I'm sure. And heck, I count myself among them. So, let's say, for example, I don't live to 93, because a cynic might say, well, Eric, that's great. The math works out if you live to 93, but what if you die at 84?
Yeah, well, more average. Right.
We've got a case study that we can show each stop along the way, the net economic value is positive. So, for example, if I died at age 84, I think my cumulative RMDs would have been something like 425,000 or something like that. And the death benefit, Maureen, at that point is actually almost double the amount I put in. Again, assuming absolutely no interest credit at any time. So it's really, really revolutionary. To kind of put a bow on it, I don't want to go too deep in the numbers. If you've got clients, if anyone listening has clients whose goal is to maximize and protect and potentially even grow the legacy for their children or whomever are their beneficiaries for their qualified assets, this is a story that might be exactly what you're looking for. And the great thing is this: everything I just mentioned is contractually guaranteed. If there are returns in the product, if the product does credit interest, the numbers get even better. In fact, they could even get truly absurd. But I think the sale in the concept is assuming no return.
The best number to really focus on is that zero, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I position it with the agents and advisors that I work with. I mean, when you look at any annuity illustration, whether it's this concept or an accumulation concept or an income concept, when you go to the back tested returns, they look pretty good, right? But, that's not guaranteed. The contractually guaranteed page is the 0% return page. That's what we know will happen. In fact, the contractually guaranteed page, the 0% return page, there's only one thing that has to happen for that to come true, and that's a signature on an application, right? So
that's awesome.
If the focus and if the win happens on the 0% return page, in other words, if you've got a client solution that can absolutely be addressed and solved for on a contractually guaranteed basis, what an incredibly comforting thing for clients to experience as they're transitioning into retirement, or even if they're already in retirement. We hope for the best, but we want to guarantee for the worst, right?
Right.
And that's really so. So this is a story that really works for a lot of folks. Is it right for everybody? No, it's not right for everybody. The advisors and agents that I talk with, Maureen, everybody's got their top 10, right? Their clients with the most assets, with plenty of retirement income, and they're looking for solutions, not products, not products. They're looking for solutions.
Gotcha.
Some of the biggest challenges we have. And this is one that a lot of folks are experiencing. And it's front of mind right now with the markets being as volatile as they are. People are looking at their qualified assets and saying, how am I gonna transition these effectively to the next generation? And this is a story that really works.
And let's talk about that for a minute. So when we're talking about the next generation, and we always mention legacy.
Right.
We always mention your kids, your grandkids, whoever you want to leave it to. Does this work if people want to start funding or eventually fund a legacy, like a charitable giving or charitable donation?
Well, I mean, it certainly could, right? So, the beneficiary could be a trust, certainly.
Yeah.
It could be, in many cases, it's probably going to be a spouse,
Right.
the surviving spouse, and then ultimately that spouse will pivot from there. But yeah, I mean, it's really a solution that can be custom designed depending on exactly what the client's looking for.
And is it only for the ultra wealthy? I mean, I know that's our gold star, right? But
yeah. So, I guess what I'd say is this: if I were a client that had limited qualified assets and I was looking forward towards retirement, I'm probably going to be relying on those qualified assets to connect the retirement income dots, right? So I'm probably not going to be taking just RMDs from my qualified assets. I'm probably going to be taking more than that. Okay. That's where maybe a guaranteed lifetime income solution might be a more appropriate call. But for those folks that ultra wealthy is a funny word. Those folks that have multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in qualified assets, but most importantly, don't have a need for retirement income from those assets in excess of RMDs. That's really who we're talking about. So
that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, we see tickets on for this solution for $100,000 or $200,000. Someone just wanting to carve off a small piece and protect it. And we see cases with two commas in the premium number. So it's really not a function of how much do you have to have for this to work, but rather are your goals and objectives in line with what this solution really delivers.
So we talked about 0 is the magic number, right? That's a great selling point for the solution. And I love how you call it the solution.
Yeah.
What is the product and the indexes behind the solution? Like what is their average? I know 0 is that selling thing, but the odds are in 20, 30 years, you're not going to have negative returns in the stock market the whole time.
Well, certainly, God willing, you're right. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny. We talk about this death benefit, this FER rider, and it is truly revolutionary. But, sometimes it causes us to really glaze over the underlying product, which is the Athene BCA solution. And it's actually a great standalone solution for folks looking for just safe accumulation or guaranteed lifetime income. And, one of the things that really makes BCA unique is the innovative index options that are available inside of the solution. So, there's a lot of indexed annuities out there, Maureen, and oftentimes they're built with an eye towards what we call back testing or backcasting, right?
Right.
Applying today's participation rates to past performance to make that back tested page look really great. And
yeah.
Not to say that it doesn't look really great on the BCA, it does, but the real engine behind BCA are the index options. And I'll give you a couple of examples. There are two indexes available inside of the solution. managed by Dr. Robert Shiller. Now, many of the folks listening today may recognize that name. There are a lot of very respected economists in the industry and very esteemed economists, and Dr. Robert Shiller certainly is one of them. In fact, the investment methodology that he uses for both the domestic and the global Shiller index inside of BCA, something called the CAPE ratio, he actually won a Nobel Prize for that investment methodology. So that's the kind of intellectual horsepower that you'll find inside of BCA when you look at the index managers and other.
And that's a great sell right there. I mean, if we're talking about sales concepts, you have the zero rate, great sales concept, but you also can talk more in depth that, you're going to be actually working with essentially someone that's a Nobel Prize winner for economics.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's the reality is that we don't own the indexes when we buy an indexed annuity, but we get interest credited based on the performance of the indexes. So we want those indexes to be led by industry leaders, and certainly Dr. Shiller falls into that category. Another index is the Wisdom Tree Siegel Strategic Value Index, and the name behind that is Professor Jeremy Siegel, another one of the most respected economists in the industry. And in fact, if you're like me, someone that has CNBC or any of the money shows streaming in the background in the office all day, you're hard pressed to go a day or two without seeing Professor Siegel interviewed. He's just really regarded as one of the leading economic minds in the industry, and we have his index available in BCA as well. So, that's those are just a couple of examples of what makes the BCA a great story. And again, we focus on, hey, assuming no return, but the reality is that the index options available in BCA, the smart beta indexes, the way they're managed looking forward instead of backwards, and really designed to be able to navigate what many folks think are going to be very volatile markets here on a go-forward basis, really makes it a unique solution for a lot of those folks that wants some protection from the market these days. And, speaking of, since we're on the investment management track here.
Exactly. Yeah.
One thing that comes up all the time when I talk to folks is, hey, what type of advisor or agent is this solution best for? And oftentimes, there's a big population of either broker-dealer reps or registered investment advisors that maybe don't play in the annuity space as often as maybe insurance-only agents. And, there's one thing I like to think about above and beyond how this thing really impacts clients, right? And it's how it can impact an asset manager, right? So whether you're a broker-dealer rep or an RIA, think about a scenario where, some of your very best clients transition into retirement and they start taking their RMDs. So you've got theoretically a declining asset if indeed the markets don't perform. Markets can and do go down. If you've got a solution that takes that risk out of the client's life and truly protects the legacy, it gives you an opportunity when, unfortunately, that client does pass along to retain that asset and retain that asset in its entirety. One of the most important things for folks in that space is AUM, right? So, having a $1 million IRA still be $1 million after 20 years of RMDs and poor market performance, that's a good thing, not only for the client, but for the advisor as well.
And not only that, but I mean, think about from a sales point of view, now you can show the heirs or whoever's gaining this, that this is how great I did managing your parents, your grandparents, your aunt and uncles. Money is that not only did we manage it and they were able to live well, but hey, they're leaving you this nut basically.
Absolutely.
And didn't I do a good job? And don't you want to work with me? That sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. We always hope that as our clients get older, that our advisors have already been introduced to who will ultimately be receiving the wealth. But the reality is sometimes that doesn't happen. And so you make a great point is, you want to obviously you always want to do your best for your client at all times, no matter what. Yeah. But certainly nobody wants to be that person that has to explain, how they managed the client's IRA all the way down to zero. So
right, exactly.
This is another tool in the arsenal.
It's awesome. And how would you advise an insurance agent to work with this product and this solution?
Yeah, well, it's folks that are not managing assets, like insurance agents, for example. So they, oftentimes, they're more affluent clients. They have that money, but they have it elsewhere, right? They're at a distinct disadvantage. They don't know where the money is, or they certainly don't have control over it. It's really just a function of asking clients in an ideal world. In an ideal world, what would your qualified money do? And that's a great question to ask. I might say to you, "Hey, Maureen, you're getting close to RMD age, or you're transitioning to retirement. I know you've got a lot of qualified assets. What's the goal, or what's your retirement distribution strategy?" That's a great question, right?
Eric, I really hope at someday you ask me that question,
Right.
right?
But that's a great question, because if you ask a client that, what is your retirement distribution strategy or your RMD strategy, and then
Right.
just be quiet. The reality is that virtually nobody has one. They say, "Well, I guess I'll take them."
And to that point, Eric, everything in the news, everything is all about saving your 401k, growing your retirement, but there's not a lot targeting the public on, the transition from that growing and saving to taking that money out and
That's right.
that transition. And that's a great question, a great way to segue and start
Correct.
really opening your client up to thinking along those terms.
Absolutely. So, yeah. So if you ask that question and you get a blank stare, well, then you've got there's an opportunity
There's
for
some work to
education
do and
there.
there's an opportunity. Absolutely.
Right. And
Absolutely.
if the answer is, "Hey, I'm just going to take my RMDs," well, okay, and then what? What's the plan for the money when you're gone? And then, I guess I'll get it to the kids. Would you like to protect and give them the most you possibly can, or would you like to just give them whatever's left, regardless of how it does? It's kind of a loaded question. People are going to say, "Well, of course, I'd like to maximize the amount that I'd like to leave to the kids." So now, when you start to talk about a solution such as BCA, you're not selling a product, but rather you're providing a solution to a problem that they just recognized they had, or maybe are starting to take ownership of. So, it's our business is not one of selling products. It most assuredly isn't. It's one of identifying challenges, identifying problems, and then implementing solutions that make the problems go away, or at least helps mitigate some of the challenges that the problem creates. And that's really, everybody says that, but very few people really mean it. That's really the crux of what we do each and every day is help people recognize, the challenges that they face, help them take ownership with them, and then, to the best of our ability, help mitigate those challenges. And this is a solution that can help a lot of those folks.
That's great. Eric, what is your number or email in case someone wanted to contact you after listening to this?
Sure. My direct line is area code 781-919-2351. And my email is ELINDEWALL@DMI.com.
And
And
of
I
course,
believe,
all of this information can be reached on DMI.com. Our personnel, if you wanted to contact you directly, anyone, they can, a person listening can go to DMI.com and get more information actually on
right.
DMIUniversity.com.
That's always the best first step. If you don't have a direct contact at DMI, you can certainly call me or any of the other vice president of annuity sales here at DMI. But the best first step would go to DMI.com, learn more about our organization, how we operate, and all of the contact numbers and all of the content will be there.
That's great.
Yeah. And one thing I failed to mention, Maureen, that I think is pretty important is it's not just DMI that's saying how great this Athene BCA solution is. In fact, in 2022, there were two separate industry organizations that awarded the Athene BCA the 2022 Fixed Indexed Annuity of the Year award. And so, the solution, from the index options to the various innovative riders to the performance of the indexes and the pricing, are such that that the industry is recognizing that this is a solution that definitely deserves a seat at the table, and certainly needs to be considered really as an asset class, just like any other asset class.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not the first time BCA has won that award.
It most assuredly is not. So this is a solution that that everyone who's active in the annuity space, and quite frankly, even those that aren't, really need to dig in on, take a closer look at, and talk to someone here at DMI. We can show you the ins and outs of the solution, but more importantly, forget how it works. We'll help you determine who it helps.
Yeah,
and I think that's really the advantage that we bring to the table versus many of the other marketing organizations that are out there. Our sales team is probably the most tenured sales team in the industry. Everyone with 20 plus years of experience wholesaling these products. I think about myself. I've worked with advisors for 25 years as a wholesaler all over the country. I like to say that I've learned from the best. I've learned what to do and, quite frankly, what works. And I've also learned what doesn't work from a lot of folks in the industry. And so, we're experts at helping people dig into their book, identifying opportunity for them, identifying solutions for challenges that their clients are having. And at the end of the day, if we have a 5 or 10 minute conversation and we can help you find an opportunity in your practice to not only find a case for you or a sale for you, but more importantly, solve a problem for a client that you work with, then that's a win-win. And that's really what our focus is. I can promise you this: when someone speaks to myself or any of my other colleagues here at DMI, they're not going to get pitched a product. The first thing I'm going to ask is, what's the client's trying to accomplish? What are their concerns? And then we'll dig in and see if there's a solution that might work. And, sometimes there isn't. Sometimes this solution isn't the best one. But the only way we know is to follow the math. That's another saying that I love. The math doesn't lie. And so I try to find solutions that are mathematically infallible. Sales concepts are just that, but the math doesn't lie.
Well, Erick, I love that phrase, and you do use it. Talking with you reminds me again why I do enjoy it. And every time I talk with you, I feel like I learned something new. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Is there anything else as we wrap up that we need to talk about or cover?
Well, one thing I neglected to mention when I was talking about the Schiller and Siegel story and the index options is 2022 in the markets was obviously a challenging year. Everybody that's listening knows that. One incredible fact about 2022 in the index options and BCA is as follows. If you look at the entire indexed annuity landscape, there's dozens and dozens of companies and, quite frankly, hundreds of products and hundreds of index options available in the marketplace. When you look at raw index performance, so forget about participation rates and all of that for a moment. When you look at raw index performance for calendar year 2022, of the 200 plus index options that were available in the marketplace, there were just 5 that actually had positive index performance in 2022. Now, that makes sense because it was a really challenging year in the market. Imagine that 2 of the 5 indexes in the entire industry that had positive performance are actually indexes that are available exclusively inside of the Athene BCA solution. So that is really quite remarkable. There was only 5 indexes industry-wide with positive performance. 2 of them are right here in the Athene BCA.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And another selling point, another sales point, another way to talk about this solution with your clients.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it just speaks to the intellectual horsepower behind the indexes with Schiller and Siegel, and it speaks to the management style of looking forward in navigating challenging markets. A rising tide will raise all ships, right? But it takes a very experienced captain to navigate really rough waters, and that's really what 2022 was. It was an ocean storm, and it's very difficult to navigate those waters, and that's where these index options are really going to shine when things are tough.
This is DMI's Next Sale podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode. For more information about this episode, additional resources, or to learn about partnering with DMI, be sure to connect with us on your next sale at dmi.com.